Mr. John Grimes, the one and only comedian extraordinaire, as you would call yourself a comedian, but also now a producer, a father of two, and a pretty stand-up black man, if I must say myself. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I hope you feel comfortable. I'm gonna ask you a few questions. Feel free to answer them and elaborate as much as you would like to. There's no way to go about this wrong. So, tell me, you are from St. Louis, correct?
That is correct. Born and raised, St. Louis, Missouri.
And welcome to Los Angeles. You've been here for a while. If you don't mind starting off, tell everybody what you think the big difference was from St. Louis to now being in Los Angeles from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's night and day. St. Louis is a very small town. I think it could fit all in the metropolitan area. No, Long Beach. Long Beach is bigger than St. Louis. Seal Beach might be bigger than St. Louis. It's not a big town. I think it's less than half a million. So um I mean, a common way to introduce people in St. Louis is to ask you what high school you went to, because there's only so many. So that's how we connect with people. Whereas maybe in LA, you might ask somebody, what part of LA you're really from. But in St. Louis, it's like, what high school? I'll know which one you're talking about. So very small town, and it's very, local city. Everything stays in house in that city. You don't really leave the city unless you're really leaving the city. And so when I left to go to LA, it was exactly what I thought the rest of the world might be like. So I'm happy I did that. So good old St. Louis.
Was there any kind of culture shock coming from St. Louis to LA? And if so, like, kind of explain that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. The Midwest, St. Louis is technically the Midwest, somewhat the South. If you go back to the history, it was like a borderline slave state. Like they split half and half. Half the state wanted to be free, the other half wanted to be a slave state. So that kind of continued on. I mean, even the three-fifths compromise is basically a racist like policy in itself. Like, five black people count as three white votes. So um, those are the kind of things that Missouri is known for, right? And those kind of that history and the race relations, I only saw black and white people my whole life. Didn't see any other race up until I got out of high school. So when I got to LA and saw so many other races, I was so blown away by that. But then the communication level too, right? We say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, in the Midwest. And when I got out here and said it to a few of my like first job I got, I was saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. People just kept asking me to stop. They're like, please stop calling me ma'am. Please stop calling me sir. And I was just like, this is normal. This is respect. I don't understand what's going on. So that was my biggest one. And honestly, I think the biggest one is just like gay culture. I literally didn't know there was a thing. Didn't even know it existed. I blew my mind. I was like, what? Openly gay? What's going on around here? Like, I did not know that was a thing. And people they don't understand how like crazy it is in the rest of the world. LA has the benefit of a bubble. It really is a bubble out here, because when you leave this state and this city, the rest of the country, a lot of places are like, no, 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 no. We don't even know. And so when you're raised that way, it blew my mind to come out here and realize, like, oh, maybe I was the one that was in a bubble as well, like a meaner bubble though. So yeah, I would say culture is definitely was shocking for me here. I mean, I found out that ramen was called ramen. My whole life we've been eating top ramen noodles my whole life. Got out here and met one Asian person who said, "You want to go get some ramen?" And I was like, "Don't know what it is, but I'll do it." And I got there and was like, "This is smack ramen. This is a quarter. Buy these for a quarter. Why y'all paying $20 for this? Are y'all serious?" So much delicious, so much better. Tasted way better. Didn't realize that was a Japanese thing. Like, all that stuff blew my mind. Never would have known until I got out to LA. So maybe I was in the bubble, realistically.
And that's funny, actually. Raymond. Yeah, I didn't know top ramen was. I always thought it was a black thing until I realized that no, it's a poor thing. So yeah, I'm with you on that
Yeah.
one. Um, so yeah, so you being in an interracial relationship, since you brought up the race aspect of things and what that's like for you, and of course being a black man as you are, a pro black man, I would say, at that. Sorry, my alarm is going off. What would you say has been the challenges building an interracial family?
Um, I think the biggest thing is that you have to commit to bringing your side of the culture into the family, right? And not be exclusive of their right and opportunity to learn about their sides of the family. So I might want my son to know about Earth, Wind, and Fire, and um, Prince and Project Pat. But he should also have the right to learn about Led Zeppelin and Jack Johnson and whoever else that um, his mom or his grandma, if they play music or things like that, or just experiences that I had no idea about. And so I learned a lot about her life and how we just differed in general. And so I'm open. I'm learning as well. I think the crazy thing about having an interracial family is that I'm learning as well what I didn't know before. The dynamics outside in the real world, they're unique. Sometimes I'll let my girl go to a restaurant and get the table for us. Then I walk in like, surprise, there's a nigga here. But like things like that. But most of the time, it's just, educating our kids and, having those tough conversations because they're only going to get tougher. But I like for them to experience stuff early on so we can try to hit it early on so they're way more prepared than other people when it comes time to deal with unique situations and unique conversations. So we start those very early. But yeah, it's unique. I don't think it's easier now than I'm assuming it was 50 years ago to do it. So it's so more commonplace and so much more mainstream now that it feels like it's not as taboo as it once was. But I always try to stress that you know, you don't seek. I wasn't a person that like sought out like interracial relationships, but it just happened to happen that way. But because of that, it's the life I live now, and I've just learned to embrace it and realize that I'm one of those people. No matter where I go now, it's it's a visual thing, and it's like got to deal with that first. I'm big on optics. I know what they look like, so you got to embrace that head on. I know what my kids look like. You got to embrace that head on, and stereotypes and preconceived notions that come with mixed children as well as interracial couples. So just it's fun to l- be teach yourself things. It's fun to teach yourself things, I guess I can say, and that's what you do in a family like this.
Um, do you feel like you get support or a lot of flack from the black community because you're in a interracial relationship?
I think it's mixed, right? Like I think most people generally don't care, right? And I think the most of the population that doesn't care are the people who thought like I wasn't dating you anyway, so why do I give a shit who you're dating? Like or the guys were also like it's not my type. So like so, and girls like I don't think they care. I think there are people who the most people who I think get upset are the ones who I think we're interrupting somebody else's opportunity um, to be together. But I feel like if you wait on somebody to be with you, you're gonna be alone forever. So um, I think people are pretty general about it. I think it's less common or less stressful for non-popular people to deal with interracial families versus like celebrities, right? Let's say if I'm a celebrity or when I'm a celebrity and you see me with the exact same family, you're gonna think, "Oh, he got rich or got on and got a white girl." And it's like that's not actually the case, but it's the perception, right? And so I think I don't deal with the issues as now as much as I would potentially later when I have more of a spotlight on myself, right? And I am very much ahead of that conversation as much as I can when it comes to that. So um it's fun, it's how the dice rolls and you just gotta deal with it. But I don't take anything away from it. I don't think anybody's actually mad at me or like upset with me. I just think that people are just like, come on, man, you're a great guy. So we want you to build more great blackness. But um great blackness exists in a lot of shades. I mean, your favorite president is probably Obama, and your favorite rapper right now is probably Drake, and they're exactly the offspring of something that I just got into, right? So it's not like we're not gonna make good black people. They won't be categorized as black people anyway. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is no matter what, and I always will tell my kids this is that you will Always be black, no matter what anybody else tells you. So embrace that life. Only three of us is black in this room. Your mom ain't. That's it.
um, you talk about it a lot in your comedy, so
Mhm.
let's get to that. Transition to a full time comedian. That's something that's very tough, and I've been able to build relationships with comedians such as yourself and quite other few that we know mutually. How's that been transitioning from, okay, you got a full-time job and you had a real, like, I got to wear a suit every day job, to now being a full-time comedian? What is that transition and that process like? How does that go?
The- you have to still prepare the same way as your full-time job had you prepare, or you got to put in hour wise the same amount, if not more, even if it's a different type of activity. My job as in the bank was, sales pipeline, building a book of business, gaining clients, gaining business from those clients, expanding business with those clients. And in the same way, my stand-up comedy career is the same way. I'm gaining clients or followers or fans of my comedy. I'm expanding my relationships with them by getting them to come to my shows as well as follow me online. And I'm trying to dig deeper by getting them to spend money on merch or buying a stream to a show or something like that. So I'm still, in a sense, if you look at it on black and white, in a sales role, right? I'm just selling my personality more than anything else now. Whereas in my old job, I was selling products for an institution. So, but at least in this particular role, I get to show myself and show the value I think I possess on my own, while also providing people a good time. So in this way, I'm just exchanging the service now, right? I'm doing the service of entertainment, buying people some laughs for the time being, so they can go back to their lives as well, and spread that out. Yeah, it's been a challenge in terms of you're. It's a very competitive environment. You're a one man show, right? And so I have to get booked shows and get booked along with thousands of other people who also want to get booked as well in the busiest city for comedians in the world. So to stand out in a city full of us is very hard to do. You just got to keep applying your unique angle on things until somebody notices it. But I've had some successes in the 8 or 9 months since I left the bank, and I'm happy about that. It gave me a little bit more motivation and satisfaction or validation, not motivation. Gave me more validation knowing that, hey, if you do the right things and you stay consistent, things will literally fall right in front of you and you got to hop on it. And so in these 8 months, I would say worth it to have taken the risk I took.
In the world of comedy, as long as I feel like any type of occupation where it's up to you, the comedian hustle is one of the hardest hustles that I've seen, because it's every day. It's an every night hustle. It's a lot of money and it's a lot of free stuff, and now also paying money to even get on stage. So for a lot of comedians out there, anybody, but I guess in the world of comedy from your walk of life, what would you say is the most important key to a comedian's success? Whether you've already unlocked it or not, or you've noticed it, had it, what is your take on the key to success to being uh, a comedian?
Consistency. And that's across the board. You just have to do things over and over again into their second nature. The best compliment I get from people is that I don't know if you write jokes or if you made that up while you were up there on stage. And I'm like, well, that's a compliment then, because nobody's up there freeballing. Nobody's up there freestyling. You have a set. That's why they call it a set. You know what you should be saying on stage. So, and when it gets to TV and other places where big productions are had, there's a transcript. They know exactly what you're going to say. Nobody's wasting time or money with you just rambling, right? So you have to have a set. It's just how naturally you deliver it is a reflection of how much work you put into it over the years, right? And so, I mean, there are some times when you're just funny off the cuff, but for the most part, to entertain people for the standard booked hour of comedy that most people aspire to get to, which is like a headlining comic, you got to do 45 minutes to an hour on stage. You're not going to go up there and freestyle for 45 minutes. You have to have an act. You have to have a set. You have to be able to deliver that. And so to be successful in this realm, or at least to be a good comedian, I won't call you successful until you measure your own self and success, but to be a comedian that can get to that hour, 45-minute headliner level, you have to be consistent with your creation, your repetition, getting on stage as much as possible to learn your own voice. And then it's micro, so a comic just asked me last night, what would you tell me? I've only been doing comedy less than a year, it'd be a year and like a month or so. What would you tell me to do to get better? And I told her to get your 1, 3, 5, 7, 10. And she just looked at me kind of like, what? I'm like, have your 1 minute set, have your 3 minute set, have your 5 minute set, have your 7 minute set, have your 10 minute set. Because look at it as if somebody had to buy your time or buy more of your time, like a video game. What did you do in that first minute to make them go, all right, I'll give you 2 more minutes? What did you do in those 3 minutes make somebody go, all right, let me hear the whole 5? All right, give me 2 more. All right, give me a whole 10. If you don't have a set that's doing that for people, you'll never get them to the next 10 minutes or the next 10 minutes or the next half hour after that. So if you're not building up to a bigger story and a better experience for the crowd, you'll be just restarting over every time you get on stage. Like, I was funny, I'm gonna try a new joke the next show. That doesn't do anything for you. You need to get consistent early. Get your 10 down, the 15 will come. The 15 will come, the 20 will come. But get your bits down to the point that people can trust you for 10 minutes on stage. So many comedians try to make a lot of jokes instead of just making your jokes sound more like you, the ones you already have. That's how you become funnier to people, when they can tell that's your personal touch on a joke.
That's that was I never heard that. I mean, I was thinking consistency across the board for anything, but I love how you broke that down. I never would have thought about it in the sense of time. I was thinking about it in the sense of jokes. I
Mm.
don't think about, okay, if I got 3 minutes, I can't tell certain jokes because that joke is too long or whatever the case. So that I think that's gonna be probably a clip that I put out from this. Follow-up question to that, and I got 2 more for you, and I'm gonna let you go. What would be the greatest challenge for a comedian coming up in LA specifically? Um, I'm sure you've experienced it or experienced it now or still, whatever. But what would you say is the greatest challenge for a comedian to expect if he's going to or she's going to get into comedy?
And LA is just growth, opportunity for growth and development. LA is the showcase city. It's not really a stand-up city, it's a showcase city, meaning that when you do comedy here, you're showcasing every time. You never know who's in the crowd, you never know who's watching. Agent, booker, manager, producer, somebody's out there watching you saying, I like that guy's set. Tell them to audition for such and such. I like this girl's set. We should put it on the like, you're too busy trying to do your best set every time you're on stage in LA. When do you really have a time to go, all right, I'm gonna fuck around today and make up some new stuff? And like, other comics in different cities can have those rooms where you can like play around and mess around. But in LA, you can walk into a coffee shop and do an open mic, and the person getting coffee might work for Netflix or it might work for Hulu or like be a manager of comedy. Like, you just don't know in the city. So every time's really an opportunity. I've gotten opportunities from going to open mics. I've gotten opportunities from doing shows or dropping in or getting a guest spot. You just, no matter when I'm on stage, I have to pretend or assume that there's somebody out there that could potentially improve my life. So as a LA comic, the hardest thing was, what do I get good at without people seeing me and seeing a bad set from me and going, that guy's never going to make it with that kind of comedy? Like, that's not my real comedy. That was just me trying to try new things out. Right. And so I did it in the I was in the dungeons of comedy. I've been out here 9 years. Like, this is the first year I've actually tried to get into comedy clubs. Like, I tried to avoid being seen by comedy clubs because I didn't want them to go, John Grimes, oh God, he was awful last time I saw. Like, they don't have that on record because I didn't do it. I tried to avoid it as much as possible. And so, not too many comics will do that. They'll go to the big clubs in their first few years out in LA because you're in LA. Why not go to the Laugh Factory in Hollywood, Improv, and Comedy Store and hang out, But if people see you hanging out and not being funny or not being on stage, they also think that you don't get booked. So I was very much hidden a long time in comedy out here. I actually used to go back out of town and do shows in the Midwest and the South and work on my length of time out there. I'd do 30 minutes, 45 minutes out of town, come back to LA and get 5 minute sets. The advantage to that was is that I just did 45 minutes. You come and tell me to do five right now, I'm gonna kill this five. I just worked out. I know exactly what five to do now. Whereas LA comics are only getting 5 minutes at a time to get better. You can't get an hour that way. I don't know how quickly people are building hours out here in LA, but it can't be at a astronomical rate. It's got to be very slow because you don't get enough stage time to build that out. So if you can get out of town and get more opportunities, or these flyover cities, or these what they call it, buttfuck Egypt places in California, like in the Inland Empire, where nobody goes, and you can work out there. Go out as far as you can, or get your own room. That's really the only other way to get more stage time, is to create your own show, create your own room, and work on your comedy while having other people come through. So, but getting the free stage time with no judgment is the hardest part in LA.
And that's something you did within this last year too, which leads me to my next question. You start making your own rooms. You start putting on your own production, which is even we teamed up for I'm about to say Showtime comedy. I'm talking about
Office hours.
Office Hours comedy, which was on the back of you were doing your Pandemonium shows.
Yes.
So you just, for people listening out there, you're actually doing what you're telling people to do. You created your own room, which I
Yeah.
thought was made you stand out amongst other comedians to me, but what would you tell yourself? We often like to look over and peruse over our year. And I like to say, what would you tell your younger self, but not young, I mean, just a year ago self. So what did you learn from these last, 12 months from last November to this November? What would you have told yourself a year ago? Now that, what would you tell your year self go, your 1 year ago self, if you would see him today?
Quit now. Quit now. Do it now. I mean, I did it 4 months later, but there is nothing that you think you can do that really isn't possible. Like, if you think it's a crazy idea, try it and see how crazy it really is. The power of momentum is undeniable. Like, the producing of shows is something I thought I could do to like supplement lost income from working at the bank, right? And um it's hit or miss, right? But the fact that I started doing rooms and giving me stage time also gives me a little bit of a name and a buzz. And in the comedy world out here, when you have a show or a room, it's currency, right? You book me, I'll book you, swaps, things like that. So you just network more. But when I saw that I could do a show, it made me think, well, what else can I do? What other mediums can I pursue? And, how big can we go with this stuff, right? And so I think the room, being a producer of a show, made me believe I could do more things like a festival. Once you produce one show, it's like, can I produce a series of shows in a short amount of time, um, and see what happens, right? And so those kind of things just build more buzz around your name. And so if you want to do a 2-for-1, build buzz while working on your own comedy, get a room, make it hot, and the streets will do the rest for you.
And I think congratulations, by the way, on a successful comedy festival that you put on in LA. Not being from LA and coming out and doing something like that, you got to have some cojones to do, and you did it, and it was a success. I can just see from social media that it was a major success, and I'm proud of you. Have known you for a short time and seeing what you've done in that short time. I think we built a real relationship with this last year now, so I've been able to watch a lot closer, and it's impressive. So I definitely want to give you your flowers on that. And
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, man. It's fun. It's a fun time.
last question. This is a little heartfelt question because we're all going to experience this one day, which is going to be our last day on this planet. We don't know when it is, don't know when it's coming. So if this was your last day, what would you like to tell your family if this was your last day on earth? What is something you would like to tell your family, loved ones, friends? But let's start with your immediate family. Let's start with your children.
Um, watch my comedy. I think you can get a good idea of my personality by watching what I did the most and love doing the most, right? Like any question you would have to ask about me, you can ascertain from watching the thing I was the most natural at, you know. So um love and and all that fun stuff is, it's sappy and you could lean into it if you want to look at that, I think those kinds of things are like implied. So I don't know. I wasn't always a sappy guy, but I think what I took away from my family and my previous generation of parents is that I knew what they did well and what they love to do. And so the way I translate that is like love is what you do. Love is where you are. And so I found out what my parents loved to do and who they were by what they loved to and what they were always doing. So my kids, my family will realize where I was all the time with them and what I love to do when I wasn't with them, which is the stage, right? And so that really translates to find something you love and then be around it all the time. So if I wasn't around my kids, I was on stage, and I think that's where they can go. Oh, this dude was always around us because he loved us. Obviously, he was always on stage because he loved to do what he loved to do best, right? And so they can take away from that as when I find what I love to do, I need to do it hardcore like my dad did, So I think that's why I would tell them to watch my comedy because then you can see, oh, okay, I see my dad's work. I see what he was about. And when he wasn't there, he was with us, as evidenced by the millions and billions of videos and photos that we all have together. So I think that's a simple way of saying, check me out. And your dad's funny, bro.
Right on. Right. It's just what you want them to know. What about your lady? What would you want to your last words if this was your last day? What would you want to share with her?
Ah, you're going to kill me. You're going to kill me. You're going to be so mad. This is my last day. I thought I had more time. Don't hate me. Don't hate me. No. I think that she would just know that she was the the instrument um the instrument that I used the most and needed the most to make great music. And so sometimes you don't see people practicing and you don't see people playing their instruments a lot. You only see them at the concert, but they spend more time practicing than they do playing concerts for people. And so to me, that's kind of how I look at our relationship is that she's the instrument that I'm always practicing with. And people end up being the beneficiaries of that. So I'm glad she's my instrument. Yeah.
Right on. Um, mother, father, parents. What would you want to tell them? Or
Uh,
brothers and sisters, if you had that, if you know, what would you want? What would you want to let them know?
I think that falls in line with them too. They need to fucking watch my comedy too, man. Like
Everybody watch my comedy.
I think that's it's more ironically for them too because we're big on we don't care about what you've done until it's worth knowing that you did it, and that's just a thing we've always been like. None of our siblings ever impressed the other sibling ever. No matter what we did, it was never impressive to each other. It's just kind of like a running competitive thing. We always were like, nah, that's not. Mm-mm. No matter what I've done, I could be on TV tomorrow, and they would still be like, I mean, shouldn't you have been on TV by now? I mean, aren't you like 8 years too late to be on TV? Like, shouldn't you like you should have been on TV in my mind? So I feel like you're late. And it's like, are you serious? Like, so I feel like with them, it's always just been like, all right, now y'all can give me credit and I won't hear it. I don't need to hear it because we don't give each other credit out loud anyway. So I think that is kind of like one of those quiet, um, motivating factors is that I know that no matter how well I do, the compliments are inaudible. So, but I just know they're there once I do something worthy of it. And so it's like a little motivator to see how much I can impress these poop faces, and they won't ever tell me how much I've impressed them. So
Family
fa-
keeps you humble, so they
family
say.
keeps you
It
humble
keeps
for
you humble.
sure. And so I'm doing it.
Lastly, the homies, the friends, the ones who your close friends. You don't have to drop any names because I tell people that can go down a a rabbit hole. Oh, let me forgot little JJ and them. Like I know. So just a statement for they know who they are. Your real close friends. The ones almost you consider brothers. What would you share with them?
I think I would share with them that they are also just as integral in the person I am today. Like if you've met me or known me since age 18 to 21 on, the guy that's here now is because you've impacted my life. And I think, like the 6 degrees of separation, like people who've crossed your path at any point in your life were there by design. Like you don't run into anybody on accident. And so I needed every person I've ever met to be the person I am right now. And so if you have stayed in my life long enough to see where I am now, I imagine that you're equally as happy that I found my path, and you want more for me, just as I want you guys to be just as successful to the point that, we have to hate how long it takes our private jet to get to us for our next vacation. Like that's the success I want for all my friends. And it's like a race to the private jet for all of us. And I think they all can do it. I've got some really successful friends who I think have great potential. So I hope the best for them. And, I'm going to win that private jet race, but still, I'm happy for them. And the sooner the better, right? The sooner the better. Let's get this jet so we can go to Vegas faster.
Well, I'm rooting for you, so I can also be on the jet. So
Absolutely, let's get this.
Yeah, I ain't trying to spend my own money. Mr. Tan Panda, or that's what you go by on Instagram, of course.
Sure, that's as much as part of me as my name. I mean, it's on me right now, So ultimately, one day it'll be hopefully a family brand that the kids can run along with, and they don't have to find a job if they don't want to. They can just run the brand, the company, the production, everything. So that's the goal. I want them to be so, choosing a career is a luxury. So like I don't even know anything about that, but if you have the luxury to choose a boring career is a luxury, basically. Like if you can wake up and grow up your whole life and go, I just want to be a software engineer. I don't want. Like I did my job. That you can even choose a boring job like that. That means I put you in the right position to choose a boring job. And that'll be my goal, is that they can not know what it's like to go, I gotta find the right job to save humanity or my family or whatever. Like I want them to be so comfortable that they're like, I just like to knit or, make baskets. I don't know, whatever boring thing they want to do. That's the goal for me, is to get them to that choice in life where they don't have to worry about actually making money to have fun or have a good life.
That's funny. My dad used to say a boring job is a good job. So I'm sorry, my mom used to say that. She's like, if it's a boring day at work, that's a good day. So man, I appreciate your time. Thank you for being open and vulnerable with me. This is the interview, Mr. John Grimes, the comedian.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir.